Hey y'all, Flipper Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today as we take a look at this fun one here. So if you've been on the internets for any length of time looking at these clones, you will have seen a million of these variations. This is the Microtech Stitch. This is the Ramlock manual version versus the automatic, which is out the side, push button. I prefer the fidgetiness. This is a carbon fiber version. I bought this off of OK Knives for a penny under $50. This is interesting because the real version of the carbon fiber with the non-coated blade doesn't exist in the real world. Microtech hasn't put this out. I just looked at Blade HQ right before I started this video. They still have not listed a price or specs or even any photos of the non-coated carbon fiber version of this knife. They do have a black DLC one, so we'll talk about maybe some of the differences with the black DLC version. I have to assume their non-coated is going to be very similar to that. Before we get started here, if you would please, down below this video, you will see a subscribe button. If you could hit that and that little notification bell, man, that helps me so much, y'all. It really does. If you need to bail out early, no problem. I understand. If you did, give your boy a thumbs up on the way out. That would be really appreciated. All right, let's take a look at the box. I'd always like to see how the box was packaged when it came in. Again, I got this from OKKnives.net. I do not have any affiliate relationship with them. I pay my own good money. You know, I don't even think they have an affiliate program there. It's kind of hard to reach anybody over there. However, my experience is you do get somewhat higher quality products from them in terms of at least the clones and the knockoffs. Again, the box looks pretty true to the original. I did watch some unboxing videos for some people who bought the real thing. Their boxes look basically identical to this, perhaps a little bit taller, but that's the only difference I could tell. Also, no literature came in my box. They all got little pamphlets and booklets and stickers and whatnot. It did, however, come with a nice high-density foam cutout just designed for this knife, so I thought that was pretty cool. Kind of adds to the overall effect of the knife. All right, so let's take a look at some size comps. It's always hard to tell. This is clearly a very full-size knife. If you're a Benchmade guy, you will recognize the Crooked River and the Bug Out. No point in even putting the Bug Out. It's way bigger than that. Interestingly enough, the full-size Crooked River, let me slide that up a little bit. I'm going to try to get these end-to-end. Crooked River still got this thing by at least a half, 3/4 of an inch. So interesting for that comparison there. If you are a Spyderco guy, you will recognize the PM2 and the Para 3, way bigger than the Para 3, obviously, and very close in size to the PM2. You can see it is still bigger by maybe at least a half inch, I would say, more than the PM2. So this is definitely a full-size knife. I'm going to show you one more comparison because I think it's relevant based on the design. This is the Spyderco Shaman, or Shaman, as MC likes to call it. I'm going to try to put these tip to tip because what I really want you to see is the cutouts, large finger choil cutouts, and very contoured style handles. But again, the stitch is considerably longer as well than even the Shaman, which is a great knife, both in the very, heavy-duty, hard-use type of knives. Let's pull up some specs. We'll take a look on the left side of the screen. You can see down the right side where all the green check marks exist. That means this thing met the exact same specs as the original. Full open. Mine came in about a 1/10 of an inch longer. Not a big deal. Certainly something you will not notice. The blade thickness, however, is a little bit thicker. So this one came in at 0.164 versus the original, which is listed as a 0.19. My handles were just a hair thicker at 0.55 versus 0.6. Not very noticeable. Certainly doesn't make a difference. It has the same blade finish and grind, same carbon fiber scales. However, let me mention this because the black DLC version of the real stitch in carbon fiber appears to have very fine milling in the pattern of as a texture on their scales. I can't confirm that yet, but that's what it looks to me in pictures. This is definitely a smooth carbon fiber. It is very real carbon fiber, nice, thick, heavy slabs of it. The Ramlock is what we'll talk about in a minute. Certainly the locking device, similar to like Benchmade's Access Lock, but in some ways very, very different indeed. And then the price, of course. The black DLC coated carbon fiber version costs $449. And again, as I mentioned, this one cost me $50. I like to also measure behind the edge because I was worried when I got it. This feels like a rather thick, heavy blade stock. It's really not as thick as maybe it looks, but I like to measure behind the edge to see how slicey, and I got anywhere from 15 to 17 thousandths behind the edge on this knife. So it turned out to be quite a bit more slicey than I thought. We'll do a little cut test in just a minute. All right, let's take a closer look at some of the components of this thing. We'll start with the pocket clip. This is very true to form. It's a steel pocket clip, very stiff. I probably need to bend that and loosen it up a little bit. They do put the serial numbers and date of manufacture. Interestingly enough, the date on this one says 03 of 2023, which is over a year and a half ago. And as of today, in October of 2024, we still don't even have the real version of a non-coded stitch manual in stock. You can't buy one. They're not out yet. So I guess they probably just use these clips from other stitches that they've built over the last year or two. But anyhow, just thought that was interesting. The other thing is, true to form, the bill on this clip sticks up way too high. This is a snag magnet. This will certainly dig in and tear up car door paint, so be very careful if you get one of these. Obviously, will go into the pocket nice and easy, but definitely sits too high. Even creates a little bit of a hot spot. We'll talk about that when we get to the ergonomics. As I mentioned, I should also mention on this version, the knockoff version, the clip is not reversible. However, if you look at the photos of the black DLC version of the original, of the real one, you will see they now have a cutout on the other side here for a left-handed clip, so it is reversible on the real ones. I'm going to have to imagine that they're going to do the same thing with the non-coated blade, because that's carbon fiber also. I'm going to assume they're going to use the exact same handles, the same scales, and just put the different blade styles on them. So I think this is now becoming a lefty option available. So that's good news for all you lefties out there. Again, this is a nice, thick, heavy, real carbon fiber. I'll bring up a breakdown picture. I always like to take my knives apart and see what's on the inside of them. You will see that there is no milling or weight reduction, which is normal for carbon fiber. These are nice, big, thick slabs, well built. If you've got carbon fiber, you will know it's somewhat grippy without even having a texture. So very nice. These are certainly nicely done, but they're, your standard fare Chinese carbon fiber scales. But again, well built, the corners are knocked down. There's nothing sharp. There's nothing uncomfortable anywhere. It's very comfortable in the hand. So they've done a good job with what they have done there. They do have partial steel liners on the inside to carry that ram lock. So you can see a little bit of it right here that continues down kind of. Again, I'll bring up the exploded view. That's also very true to the original, just helps give additional strength to that ram lock and pivot area. That's pretty cool. The hardware on this is also true to the original. You have T20 on the pivot. Every other screw on this knife is a T8, including the clip screws. That's super cool as well. Another big departure from the original is the backspacer. On the real one is titanium. This version has a steel. The lanyard hole. So I'd be curious to know, y'all let me know down in the comments, do y'all actually put lanyards on big beefy knives like this? I can see on something small, a little small pocketable, something that might disappear in your pocket, maybe having a lanyard. I know Chris Reeve obviously does lanyards on all of their knives, but I just can't imagine anybody wanting to put a lanyard on this big beefy knife. So y'all let me know if you are a lanyard person and would put a lanyard on this knife. Either way, I love the way they've done this. It's kind of hidden and unobtrusive there. Take a little bit closer look at the blade. This is a Borka Blades design. You can see that maker's mark right here. You've got the regular micro stitch logo as well as the blade steel markings, which is M390 MK, their version of M390. This is clearly not going to be an M390 blade at $50. However, my experience is that OK Knives, when you buy their kind of upscaled versions, and this carbon fiber definitely qualifies for that. You start getting into the $40, $50 and up range, they're always using either D2 or 9CR18. I have no way to independently validate that. I have talked to them about it. They have told me that. Kind of my experience in sharpening other blades that I've gotten from them at the higher end does feel definitely like it's not so soft like a 5CR or even an 8CR for that matter. So I'm pretty confident it's got to be 9CR or D2, but again, I've got absolutely no way to prove that whatsoever. The branding is all true to form. The blades do ride on washers. You can see this thing swings beautiful and free. You can open it, obviously, just like you would with any other type access lock or bar lock. That works just great. Deployment-wise, I always go with the Spidey flick. That seems to work the easiest for me. The detent on this is good. If you're going to thumb flick it, you've got to go out and around. You really got to push it. This is a big, heavy blade. To swing that thing out and free, you've got to really give it some go, maybe even a little bit of wrist flick on there. But it's not because it's rough or gritty in any way. This is as smooth as it gets. The detent's pretty strong, obviously provided by that ram lock. The ram lock is very similar in some ways. Well, it's only similar in basic general appearance in that you pull two tabs back to release the lock, whether it's in the open or closed position. That's the only thing it has in common really with the Axis lock. I love these buttons. They definitely are not over. They're not too harsh or sharp in any way, but definitely you can see that gives you a good grip there. The spring on this, instead of having a round Omega spring, this is a straight coiled spring that goes back here that provides the tension for that lock bar to ride on. There is no real detent lash to speak of. Now, this is a tough call. So you can see I can pull this blade a little bit here at detent, but if you look, it's the tab moving as well. So what it's doing is literally moving the tang of the blade against the lock, which is now sliding that lock backwards, which is what it's intended to do. So I don't really consider that to be detent lash. At full lockup, it is solid, nice, big, beefy stop pin there behind the tang of the blade. No left, right, up, down, as you would probably expect from a nice big knife like this. That's done really well. However, this is an issue I have found with the lockup. So let's talk about this. I'm gonna hit this thing hard. I think you can agree that's pretty hard, right? That's going to be harder than most people should ever use their knives, particularly in putting that direction of force on it. However, if you slam this thing hard enough, it will slide that ram lock back out of place. Let's give it a real hard whack this time. Keep your fingers free, for goodness sakes, if y'all try this. There you go. If you hit it hard enough, you can break that thing free. And really, it's a function of the roundness of this button. The bottom of that is rounded, similar to how you see it on the button. And that roundness is interfacing with the tang of the blade. And it's just enough, slick enough, that if you hit it hard enough, it will cause that lock to move backwards just enough for it to break free. But again, if you are doing any kind of work that exerts more force than that on the back of your knife, even that won't break it free. So to me, is it an issue? No, but I want to make y'all aware of it because I want you to see everything that I see. All right. All right. So we've talked about all that. It is definitely drop shut. This is a finger guillotine if you're from France. This thing will take off some fingertips. So if y'all get this knife, make sure you have taught yourself to keep the fingers clear of that path, because this big heavy blade coming down, and it actually makes a whoosh sound. I know you can't hear that on this video, but y'all, that's really cool on this knife. It's like whoosh before it slams home. You can hear whoosh. It's almost like the wind, like a baseball flying by your head kind of wind sound. It's kind of cool on that. As far as blade centering goes, this thing was dead nut center. I see it's off a little bit now, but I did take it all apart and lubricate it up a little bit. Just check it out. Wanted to get some photos of the inside, so I think I just need to play with my pivot a little bit, because this thing was absolutely perfect when I first got it. So this is all of my doing. If you're a sharpening person, you probably have already picked up, there is just, you could sharpen, a ½ inch off of this blade and not run into any issues because of the size of that finger choil. So, which is good, because, a knife like this, if you're actually going to use it, you're going to need to be sharpening it much more than you would with any kind of M390 blade. All right, let's talk about the good things that I love. The ergonomics are great. You've already picked that up. Huge knife. I've got a size large glove. You have tons of room in the back position. If you have massive sausage fingers, you're still going to fit very comfortably in that choil. This is where I think most people use this knife. It's just the perfect ergonomics right here to be choked up. Great thumb spoon here. The jimping is shallow yet deep enough to actually give you decent traction. Same thing, you've got some light jimping underneath here. And right here, push cutting in this way, this thing is great all day long. I bought it because of the looks. So there's no other knife out there that just really looks like this knife. It's aggressive, it's strong, it's a full-size, beefy knife. And I just want to have a representative example that doesn't cost me $400 to put into my collection to show my grandkids someday. I probably won't use this knife very often, to be honest with you. It's a bit heavy, it's a bit large. Not terribly so. You could definitely, I know people carry these things all day long. I'm an office warrior. I definitely don't usually need a knife this big and strong and beefy. However, in the occasion that I do, I certainly would not hesitate to carry this thing out there. Smooth action, slicey blade. We didn't even do any cut tests. Let's do a quick cut test because, you know, you buy a knife, that's what you want to know, right? Is it sharp? Well, hopefully you can see, yep, this is definitely sharp. So it'll slice paper, yeehaw for that, right? I mean, if that's all you got to do in life, you probably don't need this kind of knife. Let's take a little bit of cardboard action. Again, I love that choked up position. And I mean, it rips through cardboard without too much trouble at all. Now let's go back and see if that has affected our blade at all. Oh, I think that might have been me there. Yeah, that was me at the end. Still good. Again, not the thinnest, sliciest blade you'll ever have, but holy cow, it's going to do everything I need it to do and more. And again, this is one of those knives that I didn't really pick up because I wanted it to be a nice hard user. I have others that I probably may even pick up first. I just love this for the design. Let's talk about the bad things. We've already kind of alluded to several of them. The pocket clip sticks up too high. That's a shame. That certainly could be remedied, although I probably won't because this is true to the original, and that's why I bought it. That will give you a little bit of a hot spot. Definitely doesn't give you a hot spot, though, when you're choked up. There's something about the way it's placed out here. When you're choked up, it doesn't become an issue. The back spacer is not titanium. Not an issue for me at all. That blade whack, if you really hammer it home, failing, that is maybe an issue. It's not an issue for me, y'all. There's nothing I'm ever going to do with this knife that's going to put that level of pressure on the back of this blade. So to me, that's not really a deal. All right, so overall, am I happy with this purchase? I'm not really going to recommend it because I don't like recommending that people go out and buy knockoffs. I wanted this for my collection. I wanted a cheap representative example of this design just to have. It's like my own little wax museum, a poor man's collection, if you will. I didn't buy it as much for being able to go out and use it in any particular way, although I have carried it. I've carried it a bunch of times. I've broken down a bunch of boxes with it. I, at least wanted to see how it felt to carry around. Definitely not a problem. It's going to take up space in your pocket. It's a little heavier than the average, EDC style knife. It's got the shortcomings I mentioned, but as part of my collection, I'm real happy with this knife. I don't regret it in any way. Love the action. It is definitely fidgetable. I'll keep this on my desk. I did for the last couple of weeks, and I'll pull it out when I'm just sitting around thinking, and I'll just sit here and flip it and enjoy the action on it. So overall, I think it's great. I'm very happy with my purchase, not disappointed in any way whatsoever. Thanks so much for y'all sticking with me. If you would, again, down below here, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Help your boy Fred out. It really does make a big difference. Throw me a thumbs up if I did all right. Throw me a thumbs down if I didn't. Let me know what I could do better. I promise I will try. Thanks y'all so much. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.